Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I definitely think three's too much.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Critters 3, which came out in 1991 from director Kristine Peterson, written by Rupert Harvey and Barry Opper. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis for Critters 3?
Well, the story follows a small family, Annie, Johnny, and her dad Calvin. They are returning from a holiday and have unexpectedly picked up some unwelcome guests. Some critters have laid eggs onto their truck and they have taken them back to the big city. The critters then lay siege to their apartment building, and it's down to Annie and her family to try and stop them before they get out.
This film, when I first watched it, just felt like it was now a just departure from the first two Critters films.
Yeah.
You know, most of the cast have now moved on. We literally only have one recurring character in this film. And it's funny because you see his name, Don Keith Opper, and then you also see who was writing this film, which is Barry Opper.
Yeah.
And then you also find out that Barry Opper, as well as the other screenwriter, Rupert Harvey, were both the producers on the entire Critters franchise.
Oh, wow.
But now they've literally taken the reins as the writers for this series of films.
Yeah.
Now, they do have some other interesting projects that they've worked on, which I really like the remake The Blob.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I like that film.
Jeepers Creepers. You know, it's yeah, I know it's one of those controversial films.
Yeah, it was the director who was.
Yeah, it was. But the film itself, you know, I still
It's
think
not bad.
I think it's a pretty good horror movie with a very good creature at the center.
Yeah.
You know, in the first Critters films, you know, they were the producers for it, but now they're trying to keep giving you more critters, and at the same time, they filmed Critters 3 simultaneously with Critters 4. It was like, we know this is a success, we're just going to make two Critters films back to back.
Well, I mean, look at the horror film series at that time. You know,
Hellraiser had done it.
Yeah, Hellraiser was on its way out. You know, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well,
like
they
I've
at
always
least
said.
had years breaks.
Yeah, but they were still milking the same horse, and you know we were saying it the same about Child's Play and Leprechaun, and let's make another Critters movie, and we get Critters 3, which I definitely didn't see in the cinema, and I didn't rush out to watch on VHS rental after the horrifying film that was Critters 2. But then, you know, at the time I did see it, I was watching other films, and there was one name that was popping up, Leonardo DiCaprio. And seeing him on the list for Critters 3, you're like,
Really?
really? Really? This is the Wolf of Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
This is Jack from Titanic.
Yeah.
You know, this is how many other characters can you name, and how many other situations and scenes and breathtaking films have you seen where Leonardo DiCaprio is there at the forefront? And here he is in Critters 3.
First ever screen appearance.
Hey, you! Hands off! Some kind of a pervert or something? Johnny, you know better than that. You don't even know this guy.
Hey, wait a minute. I don't know you either, okay? He almost went over the edge. There could be badgers or something down there.
And he does a good enough job. You can there's parts where you can see that he is capable of emoting,
Yes.
and that he could become a star. He's definitely the best actor in the film.
Well, yes, literally. But it's also the fact that I believe his character, which helps me believe the rest of these other characters, even though I know how this is all going to go. And there are so many kids in this film. And have the Critters ever killed kids?
No.
So, right, that's strike number one. I mean, we've got Annie, played by Aimee Brooks. She was in Critters 3. And we also have Kristine and Joseph Cousins playing Johnny. Now, those are twin actors who are playing Johnny, and it's weird that I know now that they're twins, because I was watching the screens, waiting to see the differences. Like when Johnny was on screen, is that Kristine or is that Joseph? You know,
It's almost seamless. They're identical twins. Can't really tell. It's fine.
But we've got this whole family element where the dad is still kind of upset after his
He
wife has
explains
died.
that it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
This 2 years thing again. That the wife passed away. Don't know how.
Yeah, and they are... we find out that he works on the trains.
Yeah.
And he keeps travelling and leaving the kids at home to fend for themselves. But this is the first holiday they've had in ages, and they're on their way back, but they've stopped because they've got a flat tyre. While the kids are out, they encounter Charlie, who's hiding in the ground, waiting for critters to turn up.
No playing here.
What? Like, did we miss a scene? Like, where are the critters? Like, they killed all the critters on Earth. You know, there was no eggs at the end of the second film. And Charlie was the sheriff.
Yeah, of Grover's Bend.
Right.
Which is...
He's still wearing a sheriff's badge.
Yeah, but he's living as a vagrant.
Hunting krites.
Hunting krites. And we know that there are krites around because we get that POV shot on Johnny.
And we hear it.
Yeah, and we also kind of watch it sneak up to the family truck to lay its eggs.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, we need to get into the thick of this story, but we've got to now follow Charlie giving us his flashback.
Any of you kids ever hear of a place called Grover's Bend?
They literally felt like they just went, here's the trailer for Critters 1. Now here's the trailer for Critters 2. Flashback over.
It was so long. It was so long. I was just like...
It padded 5 minutes of the film.
I've just watched both films entirely, ready for Critters 3. And
it was so cheap.
And then he just turns around to Johnny and he says, okay, Johnny, keep your eyes out. If there's any critters about, here's a magic crystal. It'll shine green when the monsters are about. Why didn't you have that in number 2?
Or number 1.
That would have helped trying to find the critters in the second one when they were attacking the town.
Well, the thing is that in the second one, at the beginning, the guy that hires the bounty hunters is like, we've detected krites on Earth. You've not done a good enough job.
Yeah.
So they can detect the krites while they're in egg form, like before they've even hatched.
Yeah.
Now, how come it took the space bounty hunters 2 years to realise that there were still eggs on the planet? Maybe because they were cold, and then because they got heated up, but they hadn't been heated up yet. But then, so there's krites on Earth in the third one.
Yeah,
and yet they send no bounty hunters, even though, I'm going to cut to the end, even though the bounty hunters know that they've almost wiped out krites across the universe, and now it's a high priority that there's krites on Earth, but we just have Charlie for this one scene at the beginning until the end.
And that's it. We don't see Charlie again until the end, because now we have to follow Annie and her family.
And because of all that terrible world building or just continuity destroying, now following this fresh family into what we would hope would be a critter's nest,
it feels like two scripts molded together. It was like they had the script for this apartment creature thing going around killing these people, and they needed a name for it, so they just slapped Critters 3 onto it. And if we get Charlie in at the beginning, then we can kind of just hook the stories together, and it's like, that'll work.
But we didn't even need Charlie at the beginning when we have the old guy at the house who knows everything about the critters as well, for no reason other than he collected all these articles and was fascinated by the story.
You brought up the old man already. I wasn't going to do it just yet, but here we go. Charlie tells us at the beginning that in 1984 he was riding his bike down the road and this craft flew over his head.
Now, in 1984, I was riding my bicycle, and I looked up.
Okay, we've just seen it. He's just said 1984.
When Critters 1 came out in 1986.
Yes. Cut to the old man, who's now going through his National Enquirer and talking about the Critters infestation at Grover's Bend and how it happened in 1986.
See? Grover's Bend, 1986. Now, you can see the same kind of occurrence 2 years later, 1988.
Yeah, so they come back in 1988 for Critters 2, and I'm like, okay, but Charlie has just told me at the beginning, for him it was 1984.
Right, so they're 2 years off.
Now, in 1984,
you can see the same kind of occurrence 2 years later, 1988.
Was that 2 years again?
Well, following all these characters around in this apartment building is mind-meltingly bad.
It is so mediocre. It's just...
You want to get behind some of them, but...
We spend all this time with, what was he called? Kevin or...
What, Frank, the supervisor?
Frank, yeah.
Frank, the supervisor.
Frank, the supervisor. We watch him, like, wandering around, insulting everybody.
He is funny to watch, though, when he's insulting people. And they insult him back.
Yo, Marcia, I got a little phone problem. Maybe you could come down to the basement and check out my equipment.
Sorry, Frank. I left my microscope upstairs.
But he goes downstairs to jack off. Well, yeah, he goes into his room to jack off and then gets a phone call from Mr. Briggs, who is the stepdad for Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Josh. And Mr. Briggs wants to buy the apartment building, but he doesn't want to pay all the people inside it, so they have to be evicted out. So that's why he's hired Frank to get rid of them all really cheaply, and then they can just burn the building down, I suppose, or turn it into something else. Now, what was awesome is finding out that Mr. Briggs was played by William Dennis Hunt, who played Ming, or Ming's version character in Flesh Gordon and Flesh Gordon 2. I was just like, okay, that's a bit off-putting, because seeing him in his scenes, and he's just constantly calling Josh Sport. Sport, this is going to be yours one day, and we're going to do this, and I'm just an evil bastard. And Frank wants his money from Mr. Briggs. And after putting down the phone on him, he hears some noise coming from his air vent, looks over, and we see the Kreit's eyes looking at us. And he scares it off. We then follow Frank again, cutting to the laundry room where Rosie is throwing her underwear down to the washroom. And he's picked up her bra. Now, this kill was quite vicious.
I do
was
think
not bad.
This is one of the better kills in the franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets mauled on the neck.
Yeah, and he manages to wrestle that one off.
Yeah, getting his screwdriver out and stabbing it. So he's fighting that one off. And then the second one attacks him in the gut.
Yeah.
And he tries to fight that one off.
That one takes him down. And then the first one comes back for his face.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's already dying at this point.
Now, I am impressed at the critter effects in this one a bit more, because it looks like they've advanced it. Plus, they've also advanced some of the Kreit's special abilities.
Oh my god. The sonic spinball critters.
Yeah. You know, they've got their normal biting attack, they've got their spine attacks. Now they can spin on one spot and then throw themselves at targets. It's like they should have had that in the second one.
They should have had it from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. But they also have their sonic scream.
Yes, yeah.
To alert other critters when there's something about.
Which can shatter glass, apparently.
So after Frank has been killed, we then have to follow Rosie down into the basement, and I was really hoping that this woman would get torn to pieces and we'd have another death on our hands. But no, she investigates for a little bit, and then her slippers get attacked by the critters. She manages to fight them off, but then gets tied up in this really silly wash line type maneuver, and the critter bites her on the leg. Now, we want to see chunks taken out of her.
Right. Been waiting 3 movies to see some real damage from these critters, but it's going for the comedy route still.
Yeah, it's pretty weak on the gore effects when it comes to them being bitten. You see the blood, but that's about it.
Oh, yeah.
And she is saved by Annie, who manages to get Rosie halfway up the stairs for then to call on her dad, who she's been arguing with. The critters mobilise and rapid fire needles all over them. And they don't take effect.
Not really. It just makes them slightly delirious.
Yeah.
It makes them lose their memory. They don't recognise each other when they've been affected by it. But with the amount of needles they've been hit by, you'd think they'd just be out.
Yeah.
Cold, paralysed.
Like the dad has like 6 in him. So he should just be on the floor, completely out.
Right.
In 2 tournaments, I've seen her shoot those 300 things. So she can throw the strike.
Marsha, I've got to bring up.
Right, the badass.
The badass.
Turned up at the beginning on the motorcycle.
Yeah, and she looks like she's got a bit of a thing for Annie's dad. And Annie looks like she's happy for Marsha to take that role. I did not realise how much of a badass this woman is. I mean, throughout the movie, she can do anything, pretty much. She's always willing on helping out. She has flares in the middle of a situation because the power and the communications have been taken out. She also hangs off the building by 1 foot and swings for a phone booth.
To try and call for help.
Yeah! Go! Yes! 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 No! 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 Yes! 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 Yeah. Yes! 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 Yes!
Because when she had the flare, she fed it to a critter who swallowed it and fell down the chute into the laundry, which started a fire.
That's good placement, that was. I did like that.
Yeah.
But you're just having this horrible time trying to mix the comedy elements with the horror elements. You know, being caught up in this dark apartment building should be terrifying. The critters should be popping out. I feel there should be more deaths, but I've seen enough of these films in the series to know that, well, they're not going to plan on killing any of the kids. So I'm not going to see Johnny ripped apart. Annie's definitely not going to die. The dad and Rosie, they should have been kills. But they end up spending most of their time drugged up, and so it's kind of funny. Mrs. Menges, played by Frances Bay. Now, I recognise her from In the Mouth of Madness. And
Immediately, yeah.
Yeah, when I saw her with her husband, I was like, she's going to handcuff him to her ankle and chop him up with an axe. No, she gets a really good kill on a critter and takes like the whole top of its head off. And I'm just like, that's awesome. But you guys you force yourself into this attic space now to get away from the critters. There's not really far to go apart from the roof, but that's locked.
No, it's not. It's unlocked.
Yeah. The padlock's just jammed in place. How does that... It does that... Somebody's unlocked it and then gone hooked it and then climbed down some other way?
Yeah.
But while they're trying to get Marsha to swing to the phone booth, Annie has climbed down the elevator shaft, gotten to the ground floor, been attacked by the critters, and Charlie has appeared. His weapon is just badass.
It looks homemade. It doesn't look like Bounty Hunter, you know.
It's just, well, massive load of explosions. It does look like one of the Bounty Hunter weapons.
Well, it fires like one, but it doesn't look like it.
No. It looks like he's got like a baked bean tin can
Right.
at the back. I thought that's what he was using to load it. And they end up just fighting off the rest of them until they get to the roof. And Charlie has to sacrifice himself one more time.
He jumps to intercept the final Krite, which is jumping at Johnny, and he grabs it and they both fly off the roof together. And then Johnny falls off the roof as well.
And
he's grabbed by his sister who pulls him up. And I'm like, the climax of this film is about them almost falling off the roof. It's not about the confrontation with a Krite.
No.
Because she helps his brother up, and then we've got Charlie dangling off the roof.
I mean, it was hard enough to sit through the Johnny one, knowing for well that they haven't killed a kid throughout this whole movie. They're not really going to drop Johnny at the end, so he just splatters on the floor. I'm just waiting for her to pull him up, and she's like, "Somebody help me!" And I'm like, "There must be at least 5 other people on that roof to help," and nobody's helping until her dad comes over so they can rectify their relationship. Once that's over, they then look over and Charlie's hanging off. And I have to sit through Charlie's close call ending To the point where Annie shouts, "Watch out, Charlie." Watch out for what?
Because that hook's going to come off the wall and you're going to fall, which there's nothing you can do about.
Into the back of the truck.
And so he's fine. Another near death for Charlie.
It should have ended there. But, as we said at the beginning, this one was filmed in conjunction with Critters 4. And so, over the entire credit sequence, we watch Charlie investigate the basement of the building.
Right.
The building's been completely destroyed by fire, and Leonardo DiCaprio and everybody else has done quite well for themselves, because after his stepdad's death at the hands of the Critters, they're probably entitled to a lot of money, and insurance policies in the works.
For space aliens.
Well,
I don't know if you find that in
you wouldn't
insurance.
mention that bit, would you? But that must mean Charlie has to get rid of all the evidence, and he finds the last 2 Critters' eggs. And Terrence Mann calls from across the universe to tell him, "Charlie, those are the last 2. If you destroy them, it will make the species extinct." And the story will be continued in Critters 4.
As a space pod explodes from the ceiling behind him.
Can you imagine the Infinity Wars doing that over the entire credit sequence? They just set up the next movie.
Well, I mean, they wait until the very end credits, but yeah, intercutting between the credits and the footage is a little bit annoying.
Oh, it's just so jarring.
It's like, do we end it here? No. A little bit more? Do we end it here? No.
I have only a few favourite scenes for this film. I didn't think I would, and I really hoped I wouldn't, in a way as well, because, I mean,
By definition, then, you like this one more than the last one.
Well, there were a couple of things that just made me laugh better than the second one did it. I mean, like I said, the second one was slapstick comedy, and the things were just so stupidly set up. This one...
It's the exact same in this one.
Yes,
like
this
the
one,
shoot.
This one, I couldn't even predict that they would mess up their own timeline.
Right.
So that was one of my favourite scenes. Charlie telling me one thing and the old man telling me something else, for me to go, what? The second favourite scene is where she's got the kite on the end of the mop and she's just bouncing them off the walls, and you're just watching this kite go back and forth. I just like the squeaky noise. You know? Mrs. Menges with the meat cleaver. You know, like I said, in the Mouth of Madness, it took me back to that. The critters in the kitchen, and the cry eating the beans and farting.
And one eating the washing liquid and belching bubbles.
Yeah, it was a really, really poor imitation of the Gremlins sequence, but...
Again, yeah. I mean, it wasn't even as good for me as the sequence in the second Critters film.
Yeah.
It's just, no. They didn't feel alive like they did in the second one in this one for me in that sequence. It just felt more cartoony. Well, I don't know whether it was because of the music or the voices were just not the same.
And it just seems silly that the critters were just constant attack from the moment they got into the building to now just stop in this kitchen.
Popping out of cupboards and pouring flour on each other.
Yeah, and just having a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
But it did make me think, you know, because I was looking at the effects, and I remember in the last one you said that you could see where it might be a hand puppet. So in this one I was properly looking, and I thought, man, I would love a Critters hand puppet.
Yeah.
You know, just to sit there like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you get to see the critters a little bit more without anything in front of them obstructing them. Like the sequence when they're trying to break into one of the rooms and there's 2 critters on either side of the doorway waving for the other one to spinball in through the door. Yeah, and I'm just like, they look ridiculous. But
They do.
I want one.
Yeah.
Yeah, for favourite scenes, you know, I love the sequence when she turns and says, how about a meat cleaver as a weapon? And just the way she brandishes it and the size of it. And then, and she does decapitate a critter. Like, that was badass.
That was badass.
Other favourite sequences, there's just really goofy, silly moments that granted, I enjoyed in the second one, but by the time I'm in this film, there was nothing fresh, there was nothing new, there was nothing original about it.
Yeah.
It was, the family element was not even close to the way it was in the original.
Yeah.
There's no bounty hunters in the film. It's just a bunch of awful actors in a horrible set being chased by pretty good special effects. So I was very, very disappointed the first time I watched this film. Watching it again now, I just know that, yeah, I'll never watch it again.
No.
You know, even if you're like a fan of Leonardo DiCaprio and you want to watch all of his works, like, just fuck this film, eyes off. This doesn't count.
So you don't recommend it then?
I don't recommend Critters 3. You know, I was on the fence with the second one, really. But again, I'll repeat what I said, is that if you were a fan of the original film, you probably would have already seen it. If you were thinking about re-watching it, I would say no, you know,
Yeah.
unless you are very, very drunk. In which case, the attempted humor in the film might just, you know, make
bowl
your
you
day.
over.
Yeah. Otherwise, give up after Critters 2.
I only recommend Critters 3 if you've gotten through Critters 2, because like with all these horror franchise series, once you get past a certain mark, you can't stop. You've got to
you
eat it
can.
up.
If you watch Critters 3, you cannot end there.
You
because
can,
it
no,
ends with
you-
to be continued.
Yeah, but I mean, there are some good kills in this one. It's not.
There's one good kill.
Yeah, there's probably one good kill. I mean, it is an hour and a half of just crap, really. Yeah, so no, don't watch Critters 3. Stay with the first one. Don't even watch Critters 2. Just don't even go to Critters 3. And God, we still got to do Critters 4.
Yeah, we're going to space. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.